I'm calling it. That's right, you heard it here first. Someday they're gonna do a Kong x Godzilla x Pacific Rim crossover, and it's gonna be awesome. This is a review of Kong Skull Island, a cinematic adventure compatible with the everyday hero system. Let's dive in. So here we have our Kong Skull Island cinematic adventure in PDF form, by the way, compatible with the Everyday Hero system, published in 2023 and by Evil Genius Games. So let's read what the back has to say. Are you ready for the adventure of a lifetime? Monarch is recruiting brave and inquisitive souls willing to risk a journey to the most dangerous and wondrous environment on Earth. It is the domain of fierce predators where the lines between plant and animal are blurred. Above them all stands the mighty Kong, a force of nature who rules Skull Island and tolerates no challenge to his dominion. Yet even Kong can't stop every threat. An unscrupulous and reckless effort is underway to weaponize the island's unique creatures, and the unintended consequences could spell doom for the island's delicate ecosystem. Can your team of Monarch recruits survive the island's perils, put an end to this plot, and bring balance back to Skull Island? Well, let's find out indeed. Like with the other source books in the Everyday Hero lineup, there is a QR code for Syrinscape, although you will have to actually purchase the pack if you want to make use of it. A great offering if you like to add that kind of immersion to your games. The introduction does a solid job in dishing out the details for the Monsterverse, which began with Godzilla, the 2014 movie, all the way up to, I believe, last year's installment, Godzilla vs. Kong. But I'm sure even the events of Godzilla x Kong, The New Empire, which came out recently, will still fit nicely here. You get a lot of info for Monarch, as well as Apex, Cybernetics, and just the general state of the world ever since Godzilla came up. By the way, my knowledge of the Monsterverse only really goes up to Godzilla King of Monsters, so I've only seen the first 3 movies, including Kong Skull Island. We get 3 new backgrounds ranging from the Islander, the Iwi, which are the native people to Skull Island, and Lost in Time, which I guess is supposed to be like Hank Marlowe, who was stranded on the island for years and eventually returned to civilization. Spoilers, by the way. In addition to that, we get 7 new professions, such as the war photographer, mercenary soldier, outdoor guide, monarch scientist, Monarch Tactical, Monarch Defender, and the Military Pilot. This time around, we get 2 new classes, and of course, one of them is going to be the Smart Hero because there's always at least one new Smart Hero in the source books. The Field Researcher is that Smart Hero, and their research plans include I Can Understand It, which allows them to understand any language after observing it for an hour. I Did the Math, which allows you to automatically hit with a ranged attack. Actually, that's kind of OP now that I say that out loud. I'm Just a Scientist, which makes the enemy think you're harmless, so they won't really attack you, unless reasons. And Here's What Could Happen, which provides you with some insight into something potentially dangerous, such as an ally cutting the red wire instead of the blue wire, even though you told them like 50 million times. The other class is the Monster Hunter, which is a tough hero. And man, I gotta tell you, these tough heroes cannot catch a break. Like, their limbs are always missing in these source books. Their unique ability allows them to study monsters, and once you've done enough checking on the checklist for that particular species, you get some major advantages in and out of combat when dealing with them. And this can be something as simple as dealing an extra d6 worth of damage, or gaining advantage to track down that monster. And there's like a whole list of them, ranging from level 1 all the way up to level 9. There are 5 feats, although 4 are multi-class feats, 2 for each class. The Cryptozoologist allows you to add your proficiency bonus when making intelligence, wisdom, or charisma ability checks related to a legendary creature. So, not really that great in my opinion, but still, if you have a character that would make use of that, then that would be something that you would take. There's also some new equipment in the book, but it's about what you would expect. New weapons that are fitting for the time period, as well as some vehicles. Although the Life Protect vest is actually pretty sweet. I mean, it's a price level of 2, but you're probably going to be given that, and it's got a bulk of 3. And really what it does is, when your character goes down to 0 HP, it automatically stabilizes you. And it does need to be resupplied during a short rest before it can be used again for that effect though. There are a few new rules to think about for Kong Skull Island, and first is the absolute armor. Some creatures will have an absolute armor rating, which means you will need to have an attack with a penetration value greater than it to deal damage to said creature. Cinematic actions are pretty much everyday heroes' version of legendary actions, so it's about time, but I also kind of wish that they had made a little bit more use of that in some of the other source books. I don't really recall this being a thing in the other source books, but I could definitely be wrong. Combat complications are environmental situations that, well, add complications. And these are obstacles ranging from falling or flying debris to wildfire. There's even terrain and weather conditions which can affect combat. And I'd like to point out that there is a really handy dandy random weather table, as well as some random encounters for the different biomes in the GM section of the book. So if you're looking for more complications to throw at your players, then this would definitely be something you could use. Survival mode, I guess, is like a hard mode for those that really want it. It's just a numerical buff for the monsters and totally unnecessary in my opinion. We've already had Titan Scale in some of the other games like Pacific Rim, but basically you're a puny human who is not going to hurt the big Titan, but they will sure stomp you into the ground. Spoiler warning, if you plan on playing through this adventure as a player, then turn back now lest Kong stomp you into the ground. Sliver of the Skull serves as the adventure for this source book and is suitable for level 3 characters. It takes place months before the events of Godzilla 2014 version, by the way, when Monarch has a foothold on Skull Island. It's kind of assumed that the PC should be employed by Monarch, although being part of a crew aboard the Compass Rose provides a civilian option for those who want it. The PCs employed by Monarch are sent from their ship, the Dauntless, to board the Compass Rose and secure it, and also find out what it was doing close to Skull Island. In order to get there, though, they will have to take a motorless boat out into the stormy waters. Then, if they should make it, they'll have to contend with mercenaries who have hijacked the ship. And if that wasn't enough, the ship is in dire need of repairs lest it sink. It becomes very clear that there was some sort of a smuggling operation going on, as creatures from Skull Island can be found locked away. Well, not all of them, as you'll see here in a little bit. Once the PCs have repaired their ship, Act 2 officially begins. They are free to explore the ship and interact with any of the hostages that they freed. At this point, they'll come across some information as to what was going on. But as the lights begin to turn on upstairs, that's figurative for suddenly piecing together information, the lights everywhere else suddenly turn out. They are being stalked by death jackals. The PCs will have to think quickly in order to stay one step ahead of the predators, but if they should succeed, another threat arises, the mercenary captain who has taken over the bridge. She'll be the least of their worries because shocker squids have invaded the flooding ship and threatened the safety of the PCs and any civilians still alive. Also, the ship crashes onto Skull Island. Once on Skull Island, the PCs can make contact with the Monarch base and get some rest. We're in the home stretch now. But wait! I was promised Kong! Well, don't worry, we'll get to him in just a little bit. In the meantime, with all the information gathered from the Golden Rose, the PCs should be able to determine that a strange fungus is making all the creatures crazy strong. There is a cure, though, in the form of a scurr buffalo they found on the ship. It appears to be resistant to the fungus. After developing an antifungal serum, the PCs are tasked with testing it on the nearby snare hunter colony. And upon returning to base, they are informed that a snare hunter queen has emerged and Kong is headed right for her. A clash is inevitable, and the PCs might be Kong's only chance for survival. What follows is what I can only describe as one of those rail shooters that you'd see in Call of Duty or Gears of War. You know, when you're gunning down like endless swarms before you crash land somewhere and have to deal with the boss. Yeah, that kind of happens here too. Eventually, the gunship does crash or lands, and the PCs have to help Kong defeat the Snare Hunter Queen. Or you could just straight up fail too, that is an option, and there are details for if that should happen. I should also point out that while you're in the gunship, there is a very real possibility that you'll just tick off Kong with your antics by hitting him instead. Be prepared to get swatted out of the sky for that. At the end of the book, we get all of the NPCs and creatures that were in the adventure and then some. There are a few subspecies, such as the butterfly bush, leaf wing, some dream slime, mother longlegs, ugh, that thing still gives me the creeps, and a little bit more than that. I'm just really glad they don't have anything like the Carnictus from Peter Jackson's King Kong. Yeah, that whole scene, that still gives me nightmares. Surprisingly, there are no stats for Godzilla, but then again, this isn't really his show. But if you want to use a Godzilla in your game, as an alternative, you could just use one of the kaiju from Pacific Rim, I guess. And at the very end of the book, we do have 5 pre-made characters, such as the tough monster hunter. We have an agile sharpshooter, a smart field researcher, a charming leader, and the wise sleuth. So pretty much a standard combination of folks that would, for some reason, be in a either Peter Jackson King Kong movie or one of the newer ones. By the way, Peter Jackson's version is not part of the Monsterverse. Just want to throw that out there. I don't know what it is about this specific book, but it has got to be my favorite of these source books thus far. And it's pretty much because of the adventure itself. And yes, that is probably a spoiler for the future videos that I still have to do for this entire series. There's just something about that high-octane action that's mixed in with the horror aspects in Act 1 and 2 that just really clicked for me. If it were me, I definitely would prolong the campaign by having them explore Skull Island a little bit more, or even better yet, when they crash onto Skull Island, actually have them travel throughout Skull Island to get to the Monarch base. That would be interesting. That way you would actually really get that intense rush from surviving what this island really can throw at you. This is a game that I'll be running with my local game store this summer for sure. It's a very action-heavy game that's not really explicit. I can actually run this with some of the teens that frequent the shop for D&D that were actually former students of mine, which would be pretty cool. Anyways, the only other reason why you might want to pick up this book, aside from the adventure itself, is if you're looking to mix Titan-level creatures with regular humans, without the big giant mechs. Other than that, I think this is one of the few books in the series that is really hard to stray from the source material because, I mean, it's Skull Island and you have those super species. Those two just really go well together. You know, I kind of say that, but I actually would probably use this for like a Kaiju number 8 type of a game, or even like a Journey to the Center of the Earth because of the hollow earth that's now in Skull Island. Anyways, that's going to do it for this video. Feel free to leave a comment down below. Give this video a huge thumbs up to support this series. And subscribe if you would like to see more. I will see you guys in the next video.